Hypersonic missiles, weapons so fast that they travel 5 times the speed of sound, leaving defenses with almost no chance to react. For decades, missile shields and interceptors have given nations a sense of security. But now, China is developing missiles designed to cut right through them. These are not ordinary rockets. They are sleek, maneuverable, and terrifyingly unpredictable. A hypersonic weapon doesn't just fly in a straight line, it twists and glides through the atmosphere, making it nearly impossible to track. By the time radar locks on, it may already be too late. And here's what makes the story even more alarming. China isn't just experimenting with this technology, it's testing, deploying, and showing it off at a pace that has caught the world's attention. US military leaders have openly admitted they are worried. Some have even called hypersonics a game changer that could rewrite the rules of modern warfare. So what makes these missiles so deadly? And why is China leading the charge? Let's break it down. The word hypersonic refers to speed. Technically, it means anything moving at Mach 5 or faster, that's 5 times the speed of sound. At those velocities, a weapon can cover hundreds of kilometers in minutes. Imagine a missile launched from the Chinese mainland reaching targets in the Pacific before defenders even finish sounding the alarm. But speed alone doesn't explain the danger. What makes hypersonics so disruptive is the way they travel. There are 2 main types, and each presents its own challenge. The first is called the Hypersonic Glide Vehicle, or HGV. It begins much like a traditional ballistic missile, launched high into the atmosphere on a rocket booster. But instead of following a predictable arc toward its target, the glide vehicle detaches and skims through the upper atmosphere at blistering speed. It can dive, climb, and zigzag across vast distances. To radar operators, its path looks unpredictable, and that unpredictability makes interception nearly impossible. The second type is the Hypersonic Cruise Missile, or HCM. Unlike the glide vehicle, it doesn't rely on a booster. Instead, it uses a scramjet engine, a specially designed jet engine that only works at hypersonic speeds to sustain incredible velocity while flying inside the atmosphere. Because it can maneuver freely the entire way, it doesn't just fly fast, it flies smart, hugging terrain, weaving through valleys, and even circling around defenses. This combination of speed and maneuverability is what sets hypersonics apart from existing weapons. Traditional intercontinental ballistic missiles are fast, but they follow high, predictable arcs that can be tracked by satellites and radar. Cruise missiles are maneuverable, but they are slow compared to hypersonics. Hypersonic weapons merge the worst features of both. The speed of a ballistic missile with the evasive agility of a cruise missile. That's why defense systems struggle. They're built to anticipate straight-line trajectories, not objects twisting unpredictably at thousands of miles per hour. By the time a hypersonic missile is detected, it may already be too late to stop it. This mix of raw speed, maneuverability, and unpredictability is what makes hypersonic missiles feel almost unstoppable, and why militaries around the world see them as game-changing weapons. China's entry into the hypersonic race began quietly, but it didn't stay quiet for long. In the early 2010s, reports began to surface of mysterious flight tests coming out of Chinese test ranges. Analysts soon identified them as trials of a new weapon called the DFZF, a hypersonic glide vehicle that could ride atop a ballistic missile before detaching and skimming the atmosphere at incredible speeds. By the mid-2000s, the DFZF had been tested multiple times, and while many details remained secret, one thing was clear: China was investing heavily in hypersonics. Unlike other nations that treated the technology as a distant experiment, Beijing was already pushing toward deployment. Then came 2021. That year, China conducted a hypersonic test that stunned the world. According to US intelligence officials, the system launched into space, circled the globe, and then dove toward its target. The test reportedly caught American analysts by surprise, prompting one general to admit, "We didn't know they could do that." While the system missed its target by several dozen miles, the message was unmistakable. China was further ahead than many had believed. The centerpiece of this program is the DF-17 missile, which carries a hypersonic glide vehicle as its warhead. Unlike prototypes locked away in testing ranges, the DF-17 is already operational, fielded by units of the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force. Chinese state media proudly displays it in military parades, showing mobile launchers carrying sleek, futuristic warheads designed to remind the world of China's progress. Beijing claims these weapons give it the ability to strike anywhere on Earth, and while that may be an exaggeration, their reach across the Pacific is undeniable. Bases in Guam, Japan, or even Hawaii could be vulnerable to a hypersonic strike launched from mainland China. For US commanders, this is more than just theory. It's a real factor in strategic planning. The United States has labeled these developments a game changer. Critics caution that Chinese propaganda often inflates capabilities, but even if the reality falls short of the claims, the rapid pace of China's program has already shifted global perceptions. Hypersonics are no longer science fiction. They are an operational tool of Chinese power. So why exactly are hypersonic missiles considered some of the deadliest weapons on Earth? It comes down to 4 factors that, when combined, make them unlike anything the world has seen before. The first is speed. Hypersonic missiles travel at Mach 5, Mach 7, sometimes even Mach 10. That's 10 times the speed of sound. At those velocities, a missile can cover hundreds of kilometers in minutes. A target could be spotted, locked, and destroyed before commanders even finish their first phone call. Traditional missile warnings give defenders 20 to 30 minutes. With hypersonics, that window shrinks to just a few minutes, sometimes even seconds. The second factor is maneuverability. Unlike a ballistic missile that follows a predictable arc, hypersonics can weave, dive, and change direction mid-flight. They glide and twist through the atmosphere, confusing radar systems and making intercept calculations nearly impossible. To defenses designed to track straight-line paths, a hypersonic missile might as well be invisible. Third is penetration. Modern defense networks like THAAD or the US Navy's Aegis system are built to counter ballistic missiles with predictable trajectories. Hypersonics bypass those assumptions. Their speed and constant course changes overwhelm interceptors, meaning even the most advanced shields may fail. In effect, these weapons turn billions of dollars of missile defense into little more than expensive guesswork. And finally, there's the psychological edge. Knowing that a missile can arrive in minutes from an unpredictable direction creates uncertainty that spreads fear through entire chains of command. Leaders cannot be sure where the next strike is coming from, and soldiers on the ground know that traditional defenses may offer no protection. This psychological impact is as powerful as the weapon itself. That's why so many generals have openly called hypersonic missiles unstoppable. They're not just fast rockets, they represent a new class of weapon designed to compress decision-making time, overwhelm defenses, and create doubt at every level of command. Speed, maneuverability, penetration, and psychological shock. Together, they explain why hypersonics are viewed as the deadliest missiles in the world today. China isn't alone in pursuing hypersonic missiles. These weapons are at the center of a global arms race that is reshaping how nations think about security, deterrence, and even nuclear war. Russia was the first to claim operational hypersonic systems. The Avangard, a hypersonic glide vehicle mounted on an intercontinental missile, was unveiled in 2018. Russia says it can reach speeds of Mach 20 while maneuvering through the atmosphere, making it virtually impossible to intercept. Then there's the Kinzhal, an air-launched ballistic missile reportedly capable of hypersonic speeds. Moscow has even claimed to use it in combat in Ukraine, though Western analysts debate how effective it has really been. China, however, is catching up fast, and in some ways pulling ahead. Its DF-17 missile, carrying a hypersonic glide vehicle, is already deployed in operational units. In 2021, a Chinese test of a hypersonic system that circled the globe stunned US intelligence officials, who admitted they were caught off guard. For Washington, this was a wake-up call. China was no longer just experimenting, it was fielding real capabilities. The United States, despite its technological edge in many areas, lags behind in hypersonic development. Congressional reports and Pentagon briefings have repeatedly admitted that America is years behind both Russia and China. Test failures, budget disputes, and a lack of urgency slowed early progress. Only recently has the US military begun pouring billions into catching up, with new programs across the Air Force, Army, and Navy. And it's not just the big three. Other countries are entering the race as well. India is testing hypersonic cruise missile technology. Japan has announced plans for hypersonic glide weapons to defend its islands. Even Australia, through cooperation with the United States, is investing in scramjet research. The reason is simple. Hypersonics have the potential to reshape nuclear deterrence. For decades, stability relied on the idea that nuclear launches would be detected early, giving time to respond. Hypersonics compress that timeline to minutes or even seconds, raising the risk of miscalculation and rapid escalation. This is why experts call hypersonics the new arms race of the 21st century, one where speed, not numbers, may decide the balance of power. For all the hype surrounding hypersonic missiles, it's important to remember that these weapons also come with significant weaknesses. They may sound unstoppable, but the reality is far more complicated. The first limitation is that hypersonics are still largely experimental. While Russia and China both claim operational systems, no hypersonic missile has been truly tested in a full-scale modern war. Reports of combat use, such as Russia's Kinjal in Ukraine, are often clouded by uncertainty, propaganda, and limited evidence. Until hypersonics are proven under real battlefield conditions, much of their reputation is built on tests and demonstrations rather than hard results. The second problem is cost. Hypersonic missiles are extremely expensive to build. They require advanced materials to withstand the heat of traveling at Mach 10, sophisticated guidance systems to remain stable, and complex launch infrastructure. That means nations can only afford to produce them in limited numbers. Unlike traditional missiles that can be stockpiled by the thousands, hypersonics are more likely to be reserved for high-value, strategic targets. Then there are the technical challenges. At hypersonic speeds, the friction of the atmosphere generates intense heat, enough to melt many conventional materials. Engineers are forced to design new heat-resistant coatings while also solving the problem of control at such extreme velocities. Even small shifts in airflow can destabilize a glide vehicle. This makes the science impressive, but it also means reliability is not guaranteed. Finally, there's the risk of the arms race itself. The more these weapons are developed, the more effort will go into countering them. History shows that no military advantage lasts forever. Already, researchers in the United States, Japan, and Europe are working on new sensor networks, space-based tracking systems, and even directed energy weapons that could one day neutralize hypersonics. If those defenses succeed, today's cutting-edge missile could become tomorrow's expensive failure. So while hypersonics are often described as unstoppable, the truth is they face real limits. They are powerful but unproven, fearsome but costly, and like every weapon in history, their edge may fade once the world adapts. The rise of hypersonic missiles isn't just a technological story, it's a geopolitical one, and its consequences could reshape the balance of power in the 21st century. For the United States, the biggest concern is China's expanding reach across the Pacific. Hypersonic missiles give Beijing the theoretical ability to strike US bases in Japan, Guam, or even Hawaii with almost no warning. Even the mighty American aircraft carrier groups, once considered untouchable symbols of power, could suddenly find themselves vulnerable. A single hypersonic missile traveling at Mach 10 and maneuvering unpredictably could overwhelm ship defenses in seconds. The threat doesn't stop there. Analysts warn that if ranges continue to increase, even the continental United States could one day fall within reach of China's most advanced systems. The possibility of strikes against cities or command centers in mere minutes raises alarm not only in Washington, but in capitals across the globe. And then there's the risk of miscalculation. In a crisis, the launch of a hypersonic missile might be misinterpreted as a nuclear attack, forcing leaders to make split-second decisions with catastrophic consequences. The compressed reaction time, combined with uncertainty over whether a missile carries a conventional or nuclear warhead, makes escalation far more likely. Perhaps the greatest danger is to the delicate balance of nuclear deterrence. For decades, the idea of mutually assured destruction rested on predictability. Each side would see a nuclear launch coming and have time to respond. Hypersonics threaten to erase that buffer. By reducing warning times to minutes or even seconds, they destabilize a system that has kept nuclear war at bay for generations. This is why experts describe hypersonics not just as new weapons, but as destabilizing ones. They shift power, raise risks, and inject uncertainty into a world already on edge. In the end, their greatest impact may not be on the battlefield, but on the fragile balance of peace itself. China's hypersonic missiles may be the deadliest weapons on the Earth, not only because of their speed, but because of the uncertainty they create. A missile that travels at Mach 10 and maneuvers unpredictably forces every defense system into doubt, and that doubt alone changes the way nations think about war. What we've seen is that hypersonics are more than just another weapon. They compress reaction times, they bypass billion-dollar defenses, and they raise the risk of miscalculation in ways the world has never faced before. Whether they turn out to be unstoppable in real combat or not, they have already altered the balance of global power. So here's the question for you. Do you think hypersonics will truly change war forever, or are they more hype than reality? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe for more Military Archive deep dives into the machines and weapons that shape our world.